Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Again, I just wanted to mention that go to mynutrienagsolutions.com and get signed up for free. Just get a free account going there, and you can go straight to Weather Story, and you'll actually start to see the weather content that we're delivering 5 days a week on this particular site. There's a lot of regional analysis. We have some long-term analysis comes out there, and we're developing this page over the next several months to contain a lot of fantastic stuff as weather pertains to production agriculture. So again, get out there, mynutrienagsolutions.com. Okay, this past weekend we saw a monstrous winter, low pressure system, and it brought everything. I mean, we saw everything from blizzards to severe weather and everything in between. I just want to show you something that really hit almost all of us. We have two maps here valid midday Sunday. The map on the top is showing you the sustained wind speeds midday. So when we look at this, we see widespread across a huge section of the middle part of this country getting an average of about 30-mile-an-hour wind speeds. But look at the gusts. That's the map at the bottom. I stopped my color bar at 50 miles an hour, which means we saw through parts of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, getting down into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. Look at the Great Lakes states, just seeing wind gusts routinely getting above 50, 60, and in some locations over 70 miles an hour. My yard is absolutely trashed because of all of the tree debris we have down, because really, where I live in Illinois, we missed out on some of the biggest snows. Now, you know, I talk so frequently about using the European model, and this is the reason why. Look at where the European model honed in on that snow, and look at exactly where it came in. I mean, so impressive that this model can continually pick up on those heavier snow amounts, where the bands are going to be, and it just gives us good guidance. But my goodness, if you were in this corridor driving, or anywhere where we saw the snow here in the northern plains or in the Great Lakes states here, it was treacherous. Brad sent me this great video here, just looking at driving north of Madison on Interstate 39. This is a 4-lane highway. Just those strong winds blowing that snow across there, treacherous driving. And this was so much of the Midwest over the last several days here. Of course, we had a pretty sizable severe weather outbreak that really hammered the southern states here, and you can see that the Storm Prediction Center put out a moderate risk for severe weather on Saturday. We ended up with 47 reports of severe storms, but the worst we're going right into here. We had 12 reports of tornadoes. We're getting some of the data back about these, and we've seen that one of them, the one that went through Columbus, Mississippi, we saw 137-mile-an-hour estimated wind speed at EF3 status, and these are some of the damage pictures from the National Weather Service. So this was a really tough day for the southern states here, especially Mississippi, with these nasty storms that went through. But as we kind of made as our main story last week, yes, we knew the severe weather was going to be there, but I really focused a lot on that flooding potential, because over the last 14 days, this region that you see right in here has had an excess. Now, this is just the last 2 weeks of 8 inches of rainfall. Some locations in there getting over 15 inches of rainfall. We've now got 486 gauges across the country near or above flood stage, with now up to 270 that are at flood. 23, look at this, 23 gauges that are at major flooding. And that's going to continue to be a problem. That's simply because it's going to take a while for that water to drain. The good news with all of this is look at the next week. When you look at the next week's total rainfall, we see that much of it is going to be to the south of where this heavy rain has been, right in through here. So you can see that really stretching from coastal Carolinas right through Georgia, getting all the way back to parts of Texas, this region's been relatively dry. Well, we're seeing a pretty big shift such that our upper level trough is going to basically sit here near or south of the Hudson Bay, which means we're going to get multiple little clippers that sneak through. So a lot of what you see in through here is going to be some light snow. Due to the dominance of higher atmospheric pressure sitting in this area, we're going to kind of suppress a lot of our winter storm activity to the south, and we're going to get a lot of coastal shower and thunderstorm activity as we get a little bit of what I call shallow return flow, not making it too far inland into this area. So a lot of folks are going to see a relatively drier week that saw an incredibly wet last several days. But I think the biggest story for the whole U.S. is going to be this strong onshore flow event that's going to smack into the west coast. So let's start off there. What you're watching here is an animation of the winds. Really, this is kind of what they're going to look like for much of the week. We still got this split flow, remember? Look at that. But it's this piece right in through here, this Pineapple Express, which just sends moisture directly into the west coast. Now, where it's going to be hitting that Northern California and Oregon border, and we do still need more snow here in parts of Oregon and Washington. Much of the rest of the West is doing fantastic. We've got most of our numbers over 100%. We couldn't be happier about this because this is going to help us get through the next water year. But look at the amount of snow that we're projecting here just over the next 5 days. Now, this is the operational European model run, but we can clearly see several feet. I've seen some maps take this up to around 10 feet of snow in the northern Sierra Nevada. Come up here to the Coast Range in Oregon. We're going to be adding quite a bit into there as well, and the Cascades too. But even getting over here into the Columbia Plateau and the Columbia Basin, look at the Sawtooth Mountains picking up quite a bit as well. Much of the Northern Rockies really getting hit here with a lot of snow. So this is just over the next 5 days. Now watch what this pattern's going to do. You're going to see a few things. We're going to see a high over low pattern from Alaska to the Central Pacific. We're going to see this trough getting established here throughout much of the next week, and little clipper systems come swinging through like this. And when that happens, that suppresses our storm track to the south, and that brings in that strong onshore flow out west. But what this also does is this unloads quite a bit of cold air that's been stuffed away in parts of Montana and western Canada. And that, of course, is going to be pushing through here for the next at least 7 to 10 days. So as I animate this forward, this is what you're really going to see. Look at the trough that's sitting there over the Hudson Bay. Look at the high over low flow. See, the high is over here, and we got the low over in this area. That high over low flow is what's going to help just funnel that moisture into California. And you can see as we get all the way out to next weekend, we keep swinging through little pieces of this trough that kind of, now this one's moving into the Great Lakes. So these are cold shots of air. And as we just kind of keep walking through, that's our pattern, at least all the way through the next 7 days. And once we get beyond that, let me kind of show you something that I'm watching pretty carefully. Looks like March 5th, 6th, 7th. We are getting into a really classic look for MJO Phase 3, that being a trough here and a trough kind of sitting in this area. And I will be watching this one carefully because the East Coast has really missed out on these big winter storms. And I'm just watching it now, but sometime maybe around March 7th, we got some pretty good model agreement that a little trough a piece of this trough is going to swing through and might race a surface low right up the East Coast, which could be quite impactful. But the bigger story for me about that trough is more actually about what it might do to temperatures in the southeast. You see, we've seen so far throughout the month of February a warm bias across this section of the country, much warmer than average here. We know we're already planting corn in parts of Texas, and we know that over the southeast, because it's been so warm, this has been very much spring-like weather at times. My concern is anything that's already starting to bloom or break, but whatever it is, if we bring in some nasty cold air, that's something that could be of major concern, especially maybe more to where we get the middle of March, but still, given these anomalies, we've got to pay attention. You can see clearly where the cold air has been, and as I animate for you the next 15 days here, you'll really just see that cold air kind of frequently gets reloaded in Montana, but it starts to sweep east with time as that trough gets established here and brings around the cold air. Now, I've got some good news for you. I've been watching this for the last week, trying to make better sense of it. I do believe that by the time we get into mid-March, the pattern should break sufficiently well that we can actually start to go back to maybe a warmer pattern for much of maybe even the eastern 2/3 of the United States. But we'll talk more about that in this week's longer range forecast. Looking at our kind of every 6 hours of total accumulated precip, I'm just going to kind of play this all for you at once, all right? You're going to see several shots of light snow moving through here. We're going to be seeing quite a bit of thunderstorm activity coming up there, and California is just going to have this strong onshore flow at times. Much of the middle section of the country, relatively dry throughout this week until a system we're watching next week. So I'll leave the drawings on there and you just watch this. See this? What do we have? We just have the strong onshore flow out west, the coastal showers down there in the Gulf Coast, and the light snow that spreads from Montana through the Dakotas. Next week, right in through here, this is the end of the week, okay, and getting into next weekend, that's when we're starting to watch something that might sneak into, the Ohio River Valley, the lower Mississippi River Valley stretching back to the Central Plains. Now, it's not that we don't have any interesting weather systems getting through there in the near term. They're just not these big, well-defined, massive systems. So, for example, I took you out here to Wednesday night. You're like, wait a minute, I see some freezing rain in Missouri. That's on the leading edge of some bitterly cold air coming with this high-pressure system. But I'm saying our next big system system might not show up here until we get all the way out to next Sunday into Monday. And that's pretty far out in the forecast to kind of clue in exactly what this is going to be. But look at how far south that rain snow line is. That is why I told you there's a dominant high pressure system in there causing some issues here. Okay, so it's not exactly a pattern that we see, these big blows that go racing across the country. It's much more subtle than that over the next, let's call it 7 to 10 days. But this is the one I'm going to be watching, okay? Evening of March 6th, early March 7th, dominant area of higher pressure. Remember, that's kind of our setup right now. Here's the coastal load that we're starting to see some agreement on from the long-range European model, and certainly the coastal lows that are sitting here off the west coast. So that's it. That's what we're looking at here. Good news is, put it all together over the next 15 days, this area is looking drier. Now, it's not going to have any precipitation, but it's drier, and we're getting wetter down here where we need it. In California, Oregon, piling up that snow, we really don't complain too much about that this time of year. So this is overall pretty favorable moving forward. Now let's take a quick look at things globally. Right now, the Madden-Julian oscillation is in phase 8. So we're talking about seeing a lot of convection here, and you can clearly see the wetter than average conditions. We will be moving to phases 1, 2, 3, and possibly into 4, and phases 1, 2, and 3 are sitting right over in this area. Now what does that do? Australia, drier bias over the next several days. What does this also do? This is really a major part of our pattern in North America, and I'll say this, as we get into phases 4, 5, and 6, remember this whole thing moves counterclockwise like this. This signals, if it's the main teleconnection, this will signal warmth here across the eastern 2/3 of the United States if it's the dominant driver. But what about South America? Because now we're into this safrinha crop. We're still harvesting first crop beans, but we're into the safrinha crop. Well, we can see that phase 1 and phase 8 and phase 2 favor wetter conditions right in through here, and that's what we're going to be seeing, so really controlling the monsoon. We also see that as we go toward phase 3, 4, and 5, that tends to dry out central Brazil, at least compared to average. Now, this is really going to be an issue with that safrinha crop, but it's something we're going to have to be watching here as we progress through the next several weeks. So it's kind of important to take a look at this global feature here called the Madden-Julian oscillation, as it's tending to control a lot of our weather. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to our next ag forecast coming out soon. Have a great week. In the meantime, head to mynutrienagsolutions.com to get signed up so you can see a lot more of our weather content. Thank you.